Hey everyone, here's a little video on how to use some cheap dollar store felts to replace the old felt on your Autoharp. I'm replacing the felt on this Autoharp so that I can start opening up my music therapy practice. Autoharps are super fun, they're easy to play, they sound great. I really love them. This one here just had some used felt on it. You might be able to see this, but there was a lot of dents here where all the strings are. So I'll go through the process of cutting and then removing this old stuff and putting the new stuff on. The first thing you want to do is get the right tools. I'm using this 3-in-1 marking gauge from Lee Valley. It's got a slitter or a cutter here, which is the best attachment to use for cutting the felts. First thing I do is I'll measure out the distance from the fence to the cutter to be the width that I want. And what I do is I just take one of the bars, set it so that it's cutting just a little shy of the thickness of the bar, and then I'll start cutting. The way you cut it is you just put it off a ledge, and then run your marking gauge against the felt a bunch of times this way, a bunch of times that way, and you'll get something that's pretty close to the exact size that you want. Once that's done, just take a knife and you can kind of open up the ends of it, because usually it'll stick a bit on the ends here. So you want to just go ahead and free that. One of the other tools you'll want is just a hone. Keep your knife sharp. There's a lot of glue in this stuff and it tends to gum up the knife, so it's good to keep it sharp so it works effectively. Anyway, this is how you cut the felts. This is an E minor bar. The first thing I'll do is I'll mark out the ends of the felts, so about where the new felt, which is this here, but where that should start and end. Oh, and by the way, I always cut all the felts, all 21 bars before, so I don't have to run back and forth all the time cutting it. So I cut the 24 felts and then I sit down and do this part. So I've got a mark here for where the felt ends and where the felt ends here. That's an E minor bar, so I'll mark my E minor on the bar in case I get all screwed up later on. And then I'll just mark approximately where the holes in the felt currently are. So I've got E minor, I've got bars here for all of the holes, where all the gaps in the felt should be. Then on this side I've got 2 marks where the felt should approximately start and end. So next thing is take off the old felt. I just used an old knife here, and I get my recycling bin under here. These come off really quickly on this particular one, because the felts probably haven't been changed since like the 70s. It's really old. It's really old glue as well, so it comes off super nice. And that's it. That's pretty much done. And you don't need to have something that's like completely free of any particles or whatever on the top here, but you want something that's fairly clean. And that's good enough for me there. Next, I'll go ahead and line up the new bar of felts. Yes, I did a good job marking it, so I know I could put it from the mark that I have. There we go. When you place it down, I like to kind of lift it up here a little bit. And I'll run my 2 fingers as a guide and push down with the index so that it's roughly centered. And then I'll push down again, make sure it's nicely seated. And I've got a piece of felt here that's glued to the bar from the end, from the mark to the mark here. Now these lines here, they're not terribly accurate, I find. So what I do is I'll set up the bar on the Autoharp. And I'll take my marker, permanent marker, and I'll run it along the string where the gap should be, and I'll press it up against the felt. And that gives me a more accurate mark for cutting later on. So I'm pressing against the felt, running it against the string. And sometimes you'll see those marks that you made on the bar are pretty good. And some of them are pretty off as well. So this really helps, I find. Before I started doing this, there was a lot of trial and error and custom fitting, if you will. But doing this, I find that I barely have to do any of that. So yeah, there we have a row of marks on the felt and a row of marks on the bar. The row of marks on the felt are just more accurate. So that's what I'll cut to. For cutting, I just use an old knife, box knife, whatever would be fine, but this is just a, I forget what you call this, utility knife maybe. And I'm doing V grooves on it. So probably 2 millimeters outside of each mark, then trying to V it down to the bottom so it meets right in the middle. And I'm using the marks on the felt rather than the marks on the bar to do this. The hone that I have, that I use, is very, very coarse, and it works quite well for this. You don't want a knife that's too sharp. You want a knife that's a little bit like roughed up by coarse sharpening media, and that'll help it slice through the felt a lot faster. Yeah, so it's almost like a saw at this point. And there you have it, E minor. Oh, wrong way. See what it sounds like. Everything looks good here. Good gaps where we should have them. We have gaps where we need them, and we have the bars, so the felt pressing against the string where it should be pressing. A bit of a weird note there, but that's the, it's not the felt's fault. I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, and that's my process for doing the, for refelting the Autoharp with some cheap dollar store stuff. This was $3 for all the felts. It came in a really big piece that was probably 8 inches or 9 inches by 14 inches. So I just cut it down.